How many of you know what it is to have momentum when it comes to just different situations in life? Maybe you've been a part of you've owned your own business and you came out with a great product and you're experiencing momentum, and you've experienced that in the past and how exciting that is. Or maybe you're an athlete and you know what it is to be in a game where your team or you as an individual created momentum and how powerful that can be. And it's no different with our spiritual lives. When we create momentum in our spiritual lives, that can be really powerful. But the only way that we can experience an elongated period of seasons of blessings is if we can learn how to generate momentum in that, and that's done through proper stewardship of the blessings. Commit your actions to the Lord, and your plans will succeed. It's a really straightforward passage of Scripture. It's really simple. It gives us a command, and then it tells us what the reward will be if we are obedient in that. Commit your actions to the Lord, and your plans will succeed, which means that right off the bat, we kind of have to make a decision when we're going to talk about our blessings in our life and being a good steward of what God has entrusted with us. We have to make a decision. Are we going to commit those things to Him, or are we not? And I know that sounds like a simple question, but you and I both know that it's a really big deal. There are 4 major categories in life that I want to tackle today, and which revolve around our stewardship or things that we experience blessings in: our time, our talents, our finances, and our relationships. And these are the battlegrounds for either God's glory or the world's gluttony. And one to be one of the two things. These 4 areas of our lives will either define our faith as believers or it will defile it. These are areas of everyday life: our time, our talents, our finances, and our relationships. If we manage them the way that God has called us to, we will experience some awesome feelings of purpose, and we will experience joy and peace, and we can rest in knowing that God is using what He is bestowing upon us in the form of blessings to bring Him glory, which gives us some awesome eternal weight. I guess what I'm really getting at here is that there's 2 ways to go about this life. Even if you're a believer tonight, you make decisions on a daily basis. You're either living this life with a mindset of eternal value and eternal weight, or you're living it on a day-by-day, going to get through, just going to make it, an earthly mindset. One of those 2 things is what's happening, and determines on how we live our lives. And these are the battlegrounds in which define where all of this actually takes legs and reveals where our true faith lies. Grace is a free and unmerited favor of God, meaning this, that everything that you and I experience, when we were born into this world, we were born as sinners. And we deserve the punishment that a sinner deserves. And God's grace was so great that obviously He gave us Jesus Christ. And when we placed our faith in Him, we experienced God's amazing grace and forgiveness, and we became believers in Him and became forgiven and a new creation. But we continually are dwelling in God's grace. God's grace is what allows us to experience the blessings in life in which you and I don't actually deserve, but rather it is His favor on our lives. And I know that is sometimes difficult to get our mind around, because we work hard. We labor hard. And not very many of us know what it is to go through a month of life without experiencing some struggles or being exhausted and being tired. We put a lot into getting the most that we possibly can out of this life. And I don't want to take away from that. That's not the point. The point is that if our mindset is right and if our heart is right, we can allow ourselves to become fully engrossed in knowing that God is the giver of every good and perfect gift, and He's called us to be ambassadors, as 2 Corinthians 5:20 tells us. We have this awesome royal calling to take what God has blessed us with in these 4 arenas and to use them to bring Him glory by showing ourselves to be good stewards. These 4 categories are things that we have to make decisions on and how we're going to handle them, because this is what I've come to know. If you note, like the first 3 chapters that we discussed were all very invigorating. Chapter 4 was fueling, maybe even a little bit challenging towards the end. And then last week we started to talk about seasons of life, become a little bit more about everyday life. Okay, these are real things. But this is really where your faith takes on legs. Like this is it. This is where how you handle these things will define what kind of experience you have in your relationship with God, and whether or not you really truly experience that life that's full and complete, because these are the things that are making up 95% of who you are as a person. So if we don't have this, then that only gives us 5% that we can work with.